Today we're going to be reviewing the Cimarron Thunderer 3.5 inch. It's not a snub nose revolver, but it's a short little stout guy that definitely packs a punch. With 45 Colt, this thing means business, and it's handy and short and small, and you can just keep it in a little holster. You could technically pocket carry this if you wanted to, but it'd be a little heavy for that, but it's still a lot of fun to shoot. It's my wife's gun. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up here. I talked all about how this is actually my wife's everyday carry pistol that she carries with her to work, and when we're out here on the homestead, this is where what she carries on her hip as we walk around for wildlife protection and whatnot. And it suits her just fine for that because the 3.5 inch barrel makes it a little bit more lightweight and approachable for carry, so it's not as big and bulky. And surprisingly, this thing is incredibly accurate, and it actually challenges my 5.5 inch Cimarron Thunderer for accuracy. We took this thing out to the range the other day with a group of people, and she put every round on target through this thing, and it was a breeze shooting it, and I was super proud of her. And I was also impressed with this gun because I bought this for her for Christmas as a Christmas present. I wanted her to have a serviceable, good old-fashioned 45 Colt revolver. Now that we're going to be hopefully moving out here to our homestead in the next year, if you're new to the channel, we're going to be building our forever home right over there, a little farmhouse with a wraparound porch, and we're going to be starting the homestead out here. And you know, you got to have a trusty pistol that's, you know, on your hip at all times when you're out here, because you never know what's going to wander onto your property that you're going to have to defend yourself from. And 45 Colt takes care of pretty much any threat that's going to wander around. So there's a reason it's been around for 150 years, right? But anyways, my name is Chad. This is the Hopeful Homestead. Thanks for being here. Let's go ahead and do a close-up rundown of the features of this gun before we go shoot it over at the range. All right here you have the Cimarron Thunderer 3.5 inch. Got that big old 45 caliber bore looking down the barrel there. Nice big pronounced front blade sight, front sight. The ejector rod housing is equal to the length of this, which means normally this ejector rod housing is a little bit longer because there's a 4 3/4 inch barrel version of this where the ejector rod goes that far. So on this particular gun, the ejector rod is shorter. So when you're ejecting rounds, you got to punch it a little harder. The rod isn't long enough to fully push the casing out of the cylinder without actually giving it a little momentum to jump out of there. So that's something to think about with a shorter 3.5 inch barrel version. But this does have the bird's head grips with some nice wood grips there. As I mentioned before, I love this with Cimarron, how the grip will extend straight back and then have a little notch here and then curve along your hand so that it makes it easy to be able to fit into the groove of your hand there, which helps manage recoil. That groove hits your hand instead of the original design, which is just a rounded slope for the grip. That actually causes the gun to raise up a lot easier when you're firing a little bit heavier load ammunition, but this helps with managing recoil, which is really nice. As you can see, this does have a beautiful color case hardened finish. I've really grown to love color case hardening. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous look to a classic cowboy gun. And as you can see, got nice pronounced, you know, nice notched groove for the rear sight with the front blade. It's very easy to get a sight picture. You pop open the loading gate door, and as you know, some of you know, I'm sure, this is a single action Army clone, which means you got a 4-click hammer. 1 click for the safety notch, 2 clicks to free up the cylinder so you can load your ammunition in there. This is all empty right now, of course. And then you got the 3 and 4 clicks for fully cocking the hammer, and then you got to set that hammer down by pulling the trigger. This gun will not fire. The trigger does absolutely nothing without pulling that hammer first, being that it is a single action revolver. And yes, as you can see, that hammer has the firing pin on it. There is no safety transfer bar mechanism at all in this. This is a true Colt single action Army clone, which means, as I've talked about in some of my other videos about these clone revolvers, that the mechanics going on in this thing are a lot more simple than the modern guns that incorporate transfer bars and all those other things that complicate things and provide more ample opportunity for failure with the gun. I've used other revolvers that have transfer bars, and the transfer bar mechanism can be a little fiddly. It makes the action actually kind of chunky and sandpapery, if that makes sense, rolling through it. Like this, it's just butter smooth, super smooth, and I can count on it, and I know that it works, and that gives me reassurance, being that this is my wife's gun, that she can count on that working smoothly as well. Especially if you oil up some of those parts having to do with the action, it really just becomes a little, you know, absolute joy to roll through, and it is, you know, pure butter. But those transfer bar systems, you know, I'm sure there's some good ones out there, but, you know, and my Colt Python being a, you know, $1,800 revolver, that's got a smooth transfer bar execution with that gun. You're paying a price for quality craftsmanship for something like that. Whereas these little Colt single action clones, you know, $500–600, That's pretty good value for how smooth and buttery and how good a quality this is for the price. It's really good, and that's why I love these things for being staples of the Homestead out here. This is going to be on my wife's hip for decades to come because of how simple the action is and how everything works. It's just going to work for years and years. We've run through the functionality of this gun and all the features, and we are going to go put some rounds through it and plink some steel real quick over here at the shooting range. All right, we're over here at the shooting targets now. I'm going to put in my ears and get this little revolver loaded up. And if you don't know, I always like to demonstrate a single action revolver. You pop open that loading gate, you half cock the hammer, which means you do a 1-2 click, frees up the cylinder, and then you can load your rounds in. And what I do is something called the cowboy load, where I load the first round into the cylinder, and then I skip one and load the remaining 4, which allows me to be able to set the hammer down safely onto an empty chamber. 3 and 4. And then I look on the side and I can look through that little gap and I can see I'm setting the hammer down on that empty chamber. So now this is a safe gun. You can bang that hammer and it will not go off. Because otherwise, if you don't know, that firing pin would be resting on the primer of the live round that's lined up with the barrel. As I mentioned before, this little gun was incredibly accurate when we were out shooting at the range the other day on the back of our property, and my wife was doing a great job with it. I only shot at a couple rounds through it, so I haven't really had a lot of time with it yet, so we'll see how it goes. All right, let's go ahead and see how this little thing shoots. Gonna go one-handed for the big plate. Miss. And go two hands. Oh yeah, there we go. Whew, man, that smoke cloud popping out of that short barrel, that 3.5 inch barrel, it's awesome. Go for the next smallest plate. Oh, I chimped a little bit there. There we go. Whoo! I actually saw part of the bullet bounce off of that plate, spinning in the air, and it landed over there somewhere. Wow. Gotta love that ring of a big old 250 grain 45 Colt bullet hitting those plates. Totally different experience from plinking with 22 long rifle, that's for sure. But all right, let's go for the next smallest one. See if I can hit that baby. Miss. I don't know, this is hard to shoot this little bit short barrel gun. I'm all out. All right, get this thing. See that ejector rod, like I was saying before, doesn't punch it all the way out. You got to really hammer it to get it out. If it's, there you go, see? Punch it out, punch it out. All right, let's put 6 rounds through it this time. And I'm gonna be crazy here and back up and try to hit some targets from a further distance, so we'll see how that goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm not setting that hammer down, but all right. We are gonna go two-handed because it's too windy to try to shoot one-handed today. Going for the big plate again. Miss. There we go. Oh, my wife is a good shot with this thing. I don't know how she was doing it. Hitting every dang target. Oh, a little high, it's shooting a little high. Gotta get that sight really set real deep down into those grooves. Man. Maybe it's shooting low. I can't really tell. There we go. Yeah, I think I thought it was shoot. I think I saw some grass pop under the plate. So I thought that meant, or over the plate. So I thought I was shooting high, and then I tried to aim low, missed a couple, and then that last one I missed, I saw it hit the ground below the plate. So this one's a little finicky. You really got to get that front blade really set down deep into that groove. Where a lot of these, let's dry fire one to make sure here that we're all out. Yep, as I was saying, a lot of these Colt single action clones, you gotta line that top of that front blade up with the top of the grooves of the rear sight. And sometimes you even gotta get it a little bit pronounced a little high above those. So instead of being like this, you got a little bit like that, creating an arc. I found with a lot of these, this is how you end up shooting them accurately. But you got to get to know your gun, right? And this is my wife's gun, and she was apparently really good at shooting it. I'm figuring out that you got to really get that front blade deep into that rear groove in order to be able to get this thing to shoot accurately. But you know, that was the first shots from about 10 yards. The second shots were from about 15, 20 yards. That's about, like I've said in a lot of these videos, all I care to shoot proficiently with a pistol. Certainly a pistol that's got a 3-inch barrel. So let's pop these out of here. Get all those suckers out. Those are all just falling out. There we go. More power to my wife, who shoots this thing like a dream. But if you want to see that I'm not a terrible shot, go check out my video about my Cimarron Thunderer 5.5 inch and see that I actually can shoot guns. With these things, especially with these iron sight guns, you just got to play around and feel for where the actual zero is, because you can't adjust things, you know? There's nothing adjustable on these, and there's some variance to how these are manufactured because these are not $2,000 guns, you know, so you got to figure out with your particular pistol how those sights line up to actually shoot accurately. So it takes some practice, but once you get to know it, you get to know your gun well, and these things are incredibly accurate once you figure that out. But all right, guys, that's the Cimarron Thunderer, a 3.5 inch version with the bird's head grip. A fun little gun to shoot, semi-pocketable 45 Colt revolver, and surprisingly accurate depending on who's shooting it. And it is a beautiful gun to look at and to carry. Something about an all wood and steel gun, right? That's just, you know, feels good in the hand. Again, my name is Chad. This is the Hopeful Homestead. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video, which, if you feel like sticking around, is right here. And it's my review of my Cimarron 5.5 inch Thunderer. So go check that out, and so you can go see that I'm actually a good shot with a gun. But all right, guys, I'll see you in that next video. Thanks for watching.